You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Happy Thursday again. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Old, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. And we are doing it for a second time. Today, now doing the Michigan Mailbag. It is back. It is spectacular. It is light on the leaders and best. Out of the 7, I got 4. Then again, I can't complain too much because got a lot of questions in general, and I was off last week, and I think I was off 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, rather. All right, let's start with our leaders and best, starting with James Crudup at James Crudup 6. How active do you think Michigan should be in the portal after Harbaugh and the company have their meeting with the new president? How fast do you think NIL changes will take place? I mean, considering it's the president that wants things to change, I would imagine that things can and will change, right? Like, this isn't like a couple of regents that want things to change. This is the president. So I think that certainly things will happen in a hurry. As far as how active do I think? I mean, obviously they got Ladarius Henderson from Arizona State. They're trying to get the cornerback from Virginia. They have a couple offers out to a tight end from Cal Poly and the defensive end from Coastal Carolina. So I think that they're going to be relatively active, but probably not like significantly more than they necessarily were last year. I mean, they brought in, I think, 3? I mean, 2 bigger names and whatever, and Olu and Cam Good. I think that they'll probably try to get maybe 4 or 5 guys. I think that's the way to go, especially because they've built a good culture within. So if they can do that, then that's perfect. I don't think that doesn't need to be like a complete overhaul like you see with some programs. My brother in metal, Michael Wolf at MWolf21, was Harbaugh right? Was last year the beginning? Should Michigan give Harbaugh whatever he wants and a lifetime contract? I wouldn't go so far as whatever he wants in a lifetime contract, but I mean, certainly they should give him more money and extend him and say, you know what, we're just going to keep this thing rolling. I mean, he beat Ohio State for a second straight year, won the Big Ten championship for a second straight year, gave Michigan its first undefeated regular season for the first time in 25 years. I mean, no matter what the non-conference schedule, that's important and impressive. So I would say at the moment, it does look like it's the beginning. However, you better have a plan for when J.J. McCarthy is done, right? Whether that's Jaden Davis or someone else, you need to have some quarterbacks that can throw the ball, because you don't want to go right back to where you were, because that was kind of the issue in some ways. But the other issue that seems to be mitigated is that Michigan can run the football. Back in 2016 when things were pretty good, Michigan couldn't ice the game away on the ground when it needed to. So at least you have that bruising offensive line, and it looks like it's not going to slow down anytime soon, just kind of based off of the amount of talent that they have at that position still. I mean, you bring in Ladarius Henderson, and now you're sitting there saying, well, he's going to be in a battle with Jeffrey Percy for left tackle. And then you're probably returning 3 other starting linemen. You obviously have Greg Crippen as your likely center next year. Otherwise, I mean, it's a good place to be. And then you've still got guys that are not going to be starting yet. Joe Al-Hadi, right? Like, what do they do with Trente Jones and Carson Barnhart? I mean, it's just they have a wealth of riches there, and that's the important thing. Jimmy Whitner at Jimmy Whitner 1. What are you looking forward to most in the Fiesta Bowl? I'm not really sure. I mean, just obviously Michigan getting out there and playing the way it's played, as far as the game's concerned. I'm looking forward to seeing if Michigan can continue to out physical teams, and obviously that TCU being the number 4 team or number 3 team in the country, if they can out physical them the way they did Ohio State in the second half. That'll be interesting. I'm excited about going to that stadium. It's not the top of my list anymore, the State Farm Stadium or whatever it's called. now. It used to be when it was built, it was like by far the stadium I wanted to go to more than any. Now, for me, it's probably SoFi. So all goes well. I'll get to go again. And honestly, just getting to see like the Phoenix area. I've only really ever been to the airport. As far as Arizona is concerned, I've only ever either flown in or driven through. So I'm excited just to kind of get all of that, just that experience. Number 2, any idea why CJ Stokes does not get more carries? I don't know, man, but it's weird that I thought we'd see him a lot more in against Ohio State in Big Ten. But I mean, Khalil Mullings has done a really good job in the short yardage, and Donovan's been. I think that's important though that they keep pushing Donovan, right? Because I think like he's the kind of guy where maybe those first 10 carries aren't that impressive, but after that it gets impressive, right? Seems to be the type of guy, if you're putting him in between the tackles, he's going to get into a rhythm and he's going to go. He's not going to necessarily be your your 5 yards a carry right off the bat type of guy, but he'll finish with 5-6 yards a carry, right? Because he's able to do some special things as he kind of wears in and wears down the defense. Finishing us out, segment 1. Like I said, we're light. Jonathan Joseph at JJoseph2156. Nice new Twitter pic. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. That's one of those Lens AI. I've enjoyed seeing all of those because I feel like they actually look like the people. I mean, I feel like it definitely made me look like in a positive light, but thank you. What positions do you think Michigan should target in the portal because they seem active? Obviously, well, I mean, they're looking at a defensive end. You're going to have a new starter there. And I'm not sure that you want a Jalen Harrell, Ayabi, Oki starting ends because they kind of are relatively similar in stature and not necessarily in style, but in stature. So I think you're looking for a different type there on the edge. Maybe Braden McGregor could be that guy, but you still want bodies, right? And certainly like Derek Moore is going to be a year older, things like that. So I like defensive end. It would be great if they could find like another great linebacker. They're set at safety for the foreseeable. Getting a lineman like they did is great. I'd like to see them getting another running back. Braylon Allen seems like he's staying put at Wisconsin. Can you go and get a Trey Sanders type, or someone who can, even though what I just said about Donovan, you need some insurance, number one, and it's always good to get, multiple guys that can do the job and do the job well. So that would probably be it. Maybe a tight end, maybe not. I don't know. All right, that's going to do it for us in segment 1. We have more to come, and we will get to that momentarily. But listen, these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. And it's so easy. Just go to the website, create a job. It's probably about the easiest thing that you will do on any job ever, anywhere. So when you're done with that, you can add the purple hashtag hiring frame to your profile so that you can spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so that you can quickly prioritize who you want to interview and hire. Then you want to finish the year strong, just like you want Michigan to finish the year strong. So how do you do that? You go and get the right guy that can go out and do the job for you. It's why why small businesses, leading small businesses, what I was going to say. I don't know why. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs the number 1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, let's continue on. We have so many more questions. We get into our Victor's Valiant, starting with Jim at Jim in the North. How does the O-line look next year? Do you think we can be run dominant like this year? I mean, I kind of accidentally just covered that, but I think you have a pretty good situation If you've seen Ladarius Henderson and his some of the clips that have circulated online, he looks like a perfect fit for Michigan. So left to right, it's going to be either Henderson or Jeffrey Percy. Percy, if you remember, got his first start against Rutgers, and they're really high on him. I do think, but Trevor Keegan and Zach Zincher will return, but I guess we will see. So those would be your guards. Craig Crippen would be my guess for you at center, unless they are able to find another Remington guy that can come in and pick up where he left off. And then is it Carson Barnhart? Is it Trente Jones? I mean, it's a pretty solid situation for the Wolverines as far as that's concerned. I do think that they'll be just as dominant as they've been. Maybe it takes a slight step back, but I think that slight step back is basically they return to 2021 form compared to 2022. Not too bad. Not too bad. Moving. I hope you love your new digs. This is a temporary situation, but yes, I moved from Ann Arbor. I'm in Fenton for the moment. And we'll reassess in a few months. Why would Cade burn bridges like he did? I covered a bit of that in the, I know you asked that question before I released the other episode that was from earlier today. I believe I have another question on that, so I'm going to hold off on that. Are our coaches great minds and great at developing talent, but not great at recruiting? I think some guys are really great at recruiting, but I think it's a little hard when you look at like Sharon Moore, right? Because it's like he has got so much on his plate now, whereas like when he was a tight end coach, he could really hit recruiting hard. Now he's offensive coordinator, offensive line coach, and then I think it's fine not having an entire staff that recruits, but you need it in today's college football, and some guys just don't seem like they have that much interest. And I think that, you better really be good at identifying and developing otherwise, and they seem to be. Mike Hart seems like he's great at identifying and developing. But, you don't want to keep on bringing in 3 stars when you're seeing what a 4 and a 5-star are able to do in Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. Yeah, Hassan Haskins was a 3-star. But you want to be able to at least bring in the best possible guy, right? If they're not going to get Braylon Allen, then you can hit the portal, maybe bringing in Arlen Harris, who ended up going to Stanford, or Trey Sanders, who was at Alabama. There's lots of different guys out there. So the transfer portal can kind of change things a little bit. You have some recruiting misses, you can hit the portal, but you hope that Santa Ono can change things enough to make it so that you can bring incoming transfers in a little bit easier in today's college football. All right. Data Guy FL at Data Guy FL. I put this up top because it's a little off topic, but can you tell us your Kirstie Alley story? And that's asked because I mentioned it after she passed away. So it was, I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. So I was working at United Talent Agency. I just got out of the mailroom, because if you're an agent trainee, you start in the mailroom and then you have to work your way up from there. It's what all major talent agencies do. And I was on my first desk, and I was working for a guy that fashioned himself to be like Ari Gold from Entourage, which meant he was extremely difficult to work with and completely tempestuous. And so I was scared to death, because every little thing meant that the entire floor I was on was going to hear about my screw up. And that happened multiple times a day, usually, because this is my first desk. I don't necessarily know everything, right? But if you don't know something, you better figure out how to know it before they, because they don't expect you. They don't like, oh, well, you're new, so we'll just work you in. It doesn't work like that. So Kirstie Alley was not a client of ours at that time as an agency. She eventually ended up being, and she came in for a meeting. I don't know if it was for a movie or if it was like a signing meeting, what it was, but she came in and she's saying hi to all these different agents that are meeting her. And the meeting was in the office right next to the agent I was assisting. And she says a bunch of stuff to all the assistants. Then she comes and sees me, and she's like, where have I seen you before? And I was like, I don't know. She's like, were you on American Idol? No, I wasn't on American Idol. And she's just was like basically hitting on me a bit. And then so she went into her meeting, and I mean, I was already really uncomfortable because I've got it's like my second week on that desk. I have every talent agent, that like big wig at the company that's in the motion picture talent department, like looking at me while I'm doing this or while she's doing this. And also like it is assigning me, I don't want to screw it up for them and then become a pariah, get fired. So the meeting ends and she's again glad handing all of the other agents. And then I'm just sitting there waiting out. I'm like, she's going to say something to me. So she says something to every other agent. And then she goes, and you, and comes back over to me. And I don't even really remember what she said, but it was like, it felt good in the moment, in the sense of, it's like, am I getting hit on by Kirstie Alley, who I used to watch in Cheers when I was little? And then actually my last agent that I worked for there, Sarah Clossy, represented her, ended up signing her. And I never told her that I was that person behind, because she was living in Clearwater, Florida. But I feel bad for Kelly Coleman, who's her longtime assistant, and because I know she's heartbroken. But really just from all accounts, just a great person, Kirstie Alley, and it's really sad that she passed away. All right. Mark Z at Mark Zimke, based on your interactions and observations this season, which underclassmen could you see as future captains, excluding JJ? Well, obviously there's a few obvious ones that I like: Will Johnson, Donovan Edwards. I think that those guys certainly can be that way, even though they maybe have a little bit more swag than you're used to seeing your captains having. Junior Colson's another one I absolutely could see being a team captain. Rod Moore is another one that I think has that capability. I'm really excited to see what kind of leadership that some of those other guys like Mason Graham, does he end up growing into a role like that? I think that's the fun part, is sometimes you just don't know. Sometimes guys grow into having that leadership capability. So, all right, let's move on here. We have so many questions. Perry Mitchell at Perry Mitchell 08. What are the chances we lose Jesse Minter in the offseason? I think that the biggest, the biggest potential team to take him would have been Cincinnati as a head coach. I know they were interested. They didn't go that way. So I think that he very well will probably likely stay, unless for some reason Mike McDonald's out at the Ravens. But I think that this time, I think it feels a little bit more like you've got at least another year, maybe some more with him. So I think that things are probably good as far as that's concerned. Will Mendoza at Willie Will 9. What are your early predictions of the TCU matchup? What opponent from this year's schedule is TCU most like, or what offense are they most like? What defense are they most like? I haven't really watched TCU, so I can't tell you for sure. I can tell you that statistically they very much match up against Ohio State's numbers to some degree. Ohio State's still a better version. The way I kind of likened them recently is they're kind of like like Purdue in a lot of ways, but with a better offense than Purdue. Probably relatively similar quarterback play. I mean, Duggan is a beast, but so that's somewhere between Aiden O'Connell and CJ Stroud as far as his capability. I think he's more gutty than CJ Stroud, but I think Aiden O'Connell is as well. But then defensively, they are more in like the Indiana range, like, bottom half of college football. So early prediction, I think Michigan's going to win by, I think it relatively comfortably. That would be my prediction. I think that they'll move the ball here and there, but getting into the end zone is going to be a different deal. I think they'll get into the end zone once, twice, maybe 3 times. But I think for the most part, Michigan's going to be able to do what it wants offensively, and it's going to hold them back enough. I expect it to be at least a 2, if not 3 score game. Once everything is said and done. El Cinto Dentista at a Smile Fixer. Assuming McNamara and all need to finish classes before transferring, are they still participating in team meetings or no longer on the team? They're not. I mean, they haven't been around for a while. Well, Eric All has been. Eric All was around up until the Big Ten championship week. Cade McNamara hasn't been around since he had surgery relative, halfway through the season to, a third of the way through the season. So, I don't know that about classes and all of that. Eric All might have like a week or two. I don't think he didn't really burn the bridges necessarily. I mean, I know it looks that way. I don't think it's necessarily that, but I know they're not participating in team meetings and stuff like that. Once you're in the transfer portal, that's done. Guessing that they will receive Big Ten championship rings. What if Michigan wins it all? Another ring? I believe so in both cases. I would imagine so. Former writer for me at Wolverines Wire, Brandon Knapp at BNAP Blogs. Who do you see being the underrated player that steps up on offense and defense in the playoffs, and why? Defensively, that one's difficult because you can't say Will Johnson. He's had like a couple really good games. He's not really underrated. He's a 5-star. Mason Graham maybe will continue to. I mean, TCU can run the ball and has been able to. I think if you mix him with Mozzie Smith, though Jalen Harrell was finally kind of coming on, so maybe it's him. It's not a very succinct answer there. Offensively, Colston Loveland is just going to continue to be that guy, I think. And I mean, first 2 touchdowns in coming against Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. Can't ask for much more than that. Anton Sismita Mangala at Sismita Mangala. Is there really a Big 12 defense that is as good as Michigan? I know you can't take TCU lightly, but I do think we have a defensive advantage. No, I don't think that there is one. And let's just quickly take a look. I hate how far over the computer is compared to the old setup here, but let's take a look. What is the highest rated in total defense in the Big 12 outside of, okay, so Iowa State is it. So I was going to say outside of Iowa State. So then after that, it's a little bit of a scroll time. Once you get outside of the soup, man. Just sitting here looking. Just sitting. Kansas State's the next best. 52nd in the country in total defense. TCU 74th, which is below the first half. So, no, they don't really have that. Now, scoring defense, let's take a look there real quick. And I'm just kind of, so this is going to be the better part to do. So the top teams in scoring defense, Illinois is number 1 at 12.3, Georgia 12.8, Michigan's 5th at 13.4. So I'm going to do this a little bit in an easier way. The best scoring defense in the Big 12 is Kansas State. They allow 20.1. TCU is 4th. They allow 25 points a game. 25. Again, I want to remind you what Michigan is. 5th, 13.4. They allow almost half the amount of points that TCU does each and every week. So TCU is 57th in the country in terms of scoring defense. Kansas State is the number 1 team in that conference. They're 17th. So, yeah, I don't know that it's going to necessarily go good for them. Personally, could be wrong. I have been wrong before, but it could be wrong again. All right. Gary Moore at GDog for UM7. Cade and Eric were captains. Both seemed to leave with bitter feelings. Were they involved with the team at all after September? I kind of accidentally answered that one as well. Yes. But Cade, I don't think we've seen Cade since like week 5, maybe week 4. I feel like I saw Cade the following week. What game was Derek Jeter at? Cade was at that game. So maybe he was around for a bit and then he dipped, but Eric All was there every week until the Big Ten championship game. Adam Kasel at Adam_Kasel. With the regular season over, which position groups exceeded expectations and which one did not meet expectations on both sides of the ball? Wide receiver is the easy one that did not meet expectations. certainly we all thought that was going to be a much better position group. And they've had their moments, but it has not been consistent whatsoever. Position that exceeded, I think the defensive line. Considering what people thought, was, you lose Aiden, you lose David Ojabo, you lose Chris Hinton, and suddenly it's better. Chris Hinton 2 years ago, I don't even remember. Suddenly it's better, right? Like it in a way. I'd say that's the answer. That's the answer I've got. Zan at Zanland. Now that the Big Ten has celebrated a full football season post Chad O'Neill's retirement, and since the media money train is coming in 2023, should the conference move to full-time referees? Yes, absolutely. Please, Big Ten, just do it. Do it. Seems like a good way to weed out the awful officiating we've seen in the conference recently. Always. But then again, that's every conference. But yes, I think a lot of these games have been officiated pretty well lately, to be honest. At least for Michigan, they have been. Which is rare. Two more in this segment. U of M clips and bolts at U of M clips bolts. First off, you were right about JJ catching fire versus Ohio, so kudos. Thank you very much. Do you know if Donovan Edwards will be castless by the playoffs? I do not know. I would imagine that it's likely because, it happened, I think, about 3-4 weeks ago. So I think that I would imagine that he'll be castless by then. But we'll find out eventually here. All right, finishing us out in segment 2, Spencer Whitmore at Spencer Whitmore. Final 4 predictions. I see us getting by TCU close to then lose to Georgia by 10 in the Natty. Still pretty cool to be a Michigan fan right now. I think that's... hopefully it's not by 10. Hopefully Michigan finds a way to win. But yeah, I think that's probably... I don't think it's going to be TCU close. I think that they'll get by TCU pretty handsomely. Personally, I need to double check because I am forgetting. So TCU's non-conference was Colorado, which was one of the worst teams in the country, Tarleton State, and it's SMU. They beat SMU by a touchdown, a little more, touchdown and a point. So I say that as if Michigan's non-conference is anything, but like the best team that they've faced has been Kansas State, and they faced them twice, beat them by 10, and then lost by 3. And I know like Texas, Oklahoma wasn't any good. Texas was okay. Michigan's probably another deal altogether from what they've seen. And considering Ohio State, Penn State and Ohio State, I just think that those two teams are obviously much better than what TCU's faced, and Michigan handled them both pretty easily. All right, we are going to continue on here momentarily. But before we do, BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, and news and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional amateur league out there, from football to basketball, soccer to esports. We've got it all on BetOnline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so many more questions. We're going to rapid fire these to some degree here. All right, Conan at Champion0038. I know you're saying you're not much of a fan anymore, but 13-0, back-to-back Big Ten champions. How does it feel? Honestly, okay, so the Ohio State game, yeah, I felt that. I felt all of that, right? Because, like I've said before, since I feel like I can't really root for Michigan, I root against Ohio State and Michigan State. Doesn't make me objective. I'm not saying it makes me objective, but I have at least some rooting interest there. That I've never been able to pull out of me, the full, the rivalry of it all. I can be objective about Ohio State, but that game, that felt pretty good. Big Ten championship game. I mean, it's exciting. It's exciting to be there. It feels good. Like, listen, I want Michigan to go 15-0. That makes my life better in every way. It's way more fun to cover a team that's winning than one that's not. So yeah, there's that part. But I do feel like I'm missing some of the, like when I hear like, oh, it's such a great time to be a fan and stuff like that. I'm missing some of that because there's parts of me that I don't have anymore. Right. I wish I could have that same level of enthusiasm. I don't, except for the Ohio State game. But I mean, Michigan wins it all. That will probably feel pretty good too, just because it's more fun to cover a winning team. It's more fun to cover your alma mater when it's winning, all of that stuff. Matt at Matt Young 51. What are Michigan's chances in landing Malachi Coleman? Similarly educated guess at North York Go Blue. Levani, DeMoney, Stephen Herron, and Miles Hinton chances. I don't know. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I haven't said it in a while. Probably haven't said it in a year. I don't really do much of the recruiting anymore. So I can't sit there and I think you're better off, like, I don't know, asking like Bryce Marich or EJ Holland or Zach Libby or someone like that covers that, regularly. I just don't get much out of it anymore. So I just don't do it. So Brian at Where Did Kemp Go? I just dropped $5,000 on 4 tickets to the national championship. Please tell me the reasons I can be hopeful on seeing Michigan play in the game. Go Blue. Michigan by far is the best team that TCU will have faced. By far. And we really haven't seen Michigan. This is another part. We haven't really seen Michigan necessarily get into its bag offensively yet. I know it probably feels weird to say that, but they've got tricks up their sleeves that they haven't used. Defensively, I mean, it's a trend. There's only been 3 teams all year that had any level of success in the second half. Not even. So, I mean, you're looking at Illinois. You're looking at Iowa. That's really it. Otherwise, every other team has been basically blanked from the Indiana game forward. So Maryland had more success scoring in the second half than Ohio State. And so defensively, they haven't seen anything like Michigan. Offensively, yeah, sure, they've seen some teams like Michigan, but Michigan not necessarily. They've seen some run games and stuff like that. But you look at what Kansas State, like they've got a good run game and a good passing game and all that kind of stuff. And they, teams have been able to score on TCU. So I'd feel pretty good if I were you, because Michigan has seen teams much tougher, and 2 of them at least much tougher. I would still take probably I'm not saying like I would take like a Maryland type necessarily, but I'd take a Purdue type and put them up against TCU, and I think it would go pretty even. Nick Aaron at Nick Aaron 27 with the addition of Henderson. Who do you see as starting O-line next year? And I should have included that earlier, but again, I'm not 100% sure who wins either of those battles, but it's, Henderson, Percy, Keegan, Crippen, or Anderson, Raheem Anderson. I should have mentioned him there. Zinter, and then either Carson Barnhart or Trente Jones. James Kovalevsky at Coach Kovalevsky. We've heard so much about the strength of Michigan's non-conference schedule. If they had scheduled 3 Power 5 opponents, say Colorado, Boston College, and Vanderbilt, instead of Colorado State, Hawaii, and UConn, would the reception be totally different, albeit the results likely similar? No, here's the thing. Unless they had scheduled Alabama, Tennessee, well, not even Tennessee, because they weren't Tennessee yet. Unless they played Georgia at the beginning of the year, Michigan was going to get that type of treatment, just because that's what kind of treatment Michigan gets. So, yeah, I don't think it would have been any different. Redneck at redneck_BMW. Thanks for the hard work. Love listening to the pod. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Sorry for the intermittence these last few weeks between moving and being sick, which both happened at the same time. It was a lot of fun. Chris Hoffman at Chef Hoffman 17. Mike Morris injury. Any chance he's full go for the next 2 games? Way too early to tell. I mean, we're 3 weeks away. Still, it's what, the 8th? They don't play until the 34th. I mean, we're 3 weeks away until I go. We're still... almost 4, right? So wait, 3 weeks. Yeah, 3 weeks away. 2.5 weeks away before I go. P.S. My buddy has to wear a golf skirt outfit and play 18 because he came in last for fantasy. Any tips for him? I don't have any. That's funny. I don't have any tips because I've never worn a golf skirt. So, good luck. Just own it. Just own it. Don't shy away. Don't be cowardly about it. Just own it. DJN at Maze Rage 86. Hypothetically, if you had to guess one Michigan wide receiver is going to transfer, who would it be? I mean, AJ Henning has a pretty good case, right? Went from being very productive to not, even seeing opportunities outside of punt and kick returns. Andrell Anthony would be another one that certainly has to make a case, but I mean, at least he can sit there and say, well, I'm probably going to get the lion's share next year. Probably. And Harbaugh loves him, so yeah. Mr. Wolverine at Mr. Wolverine 101. Not that high school recruiting rankings matter that much, but the average ranking of a Michigan offensive starter is 0.9219 contrasted to a TCU offensive starter being 0.8819. To put that in perspective, that margin is the same margin between TCU and North Texas, according to 24/7 Sports. Oh, that's an interesting way to look at it. Listen, they're clearly overachieving. That overachieving certainly could end up in a win in the college football playoff, especially if Michigan doesn't come out with its A game. But, I mean, talent sometimes wins out. Sometimes it's development. Sometimes it's scheme. It's all these things need to, kind of coalesce all together. All right, 2 more left here. Pib Supremacist at Leftist Lieutenant. All right. The most coaching up during the bowl practices in order to win the playoff. Does what the most coaching up during? Oh, I'm not sure how that's a question, unless I accidentally cut off part of it, which is possible. Does Mullings spend most of his practice time with the LBs or running backs? I believe probably the running backs. I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure it's been the running backs the couple weeks there. But it was entirely the linebackers before Blake Corum was incapable of being Blake Corum. Finishing us out altogether. Brett Byer at Brett Byer 6. Do you know what was specifically repaired in Blake's surgery? Not 100%, but I think it was the meniscus. I've heard rumors that it was meniscus. Okay. Partial meniscus can take 4 to 6 weeks to heal. More serious ones can take months. Is there a possibility? Have you heard anything on Mike Morris's hamstring? I think there's a possibility for Blake. I don't think it's a big one. As far as Mike Morris's hamstring, I mean, he was out there kind of doing his thing. He looked like he was a little bit more mobile than Nakai Hill-Green, but that's all I know. We'll find out more as the time goes on, but we've been kind of separated from the team this week, as have the coaches, because they're out recruiting. That's going to do it for us with this one, the mailbag. Nice and long. We'll be back Friday with whatever. Thanks for watching and or listening. We will be back soon. Make sure that if you haven't watched or listened to the other Thursday podcast, there is another one. Tiptoeing and breaking through barriers, whatever I called it. Thanks for watching and or listening. Talk to you soon. Peace.